All right, good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for being a part of today's press conference being held by State Senator Neil Anderson, Representative Dan Swanson, and Scott from the Quad City area, who is the Deputy Director of QCOM, which is a dispatch center. We have some exciting news to talk to you about today. So with that, let's turn it over to Senator Anderson to talk more about his bill.
Thanks, Lindsay, and good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here and taking the time out this morning. I'm State Senator Neil Anderson. I represent the 36th Senate District, which is the majority of Rock Island, Whiteside counties, and parts of Henry and Carroll County. As most of you have probably seen on social media and through the news, this week is National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week. This is the week that we highlight every year, where the men and women behind the scenes, who are literally the first ones that pick up the phone when someone is in need of help. This is the week I find it very appropriate to share some good news that came out of Springfield this past week. For several years now, I've worked on a piece of legislation and a bill that would classify emergency dispatchers as first responders. The idea initially came to me from a constituent of mine. As a professional fireman in the city of Moline, I also know the utmost importance that our dispatchers have to not only us as firemen and law enforcement and EMS, but also to our community. Dispatchers are there to answer the initial call on probably 99% of the time, the worst day of someone's life. These men and women are oftentimes deal with critical situations, and they are our eyes and ears, police, fire, EMS, behind the scenes before we get to the scene. They not only work to protect us and keep us safe, but also our citizens, the citizens of our communities. So last Friday, April 8th, Senate Bill 3127 passed both the Senate and the House, and pending the governor's signature, this bill would amend various laws to include emergency medical dispatchers as first responders. With that general overview, I'd like to kick it over to my friend and colleague, Representative Dan Swanson, who carried it through the House. Representative? You're on mute, Representative.
Thank you, Senator Anderson. My name is Dan Swanson, State Representative for the 74th District. I have all of Mercer County, most of Henry County, part of Knox, Bureau, and Lee County. I am a retired veteran of the Illinois Army National Guard and the United States Army, and the chief sponsor of Senate Bill 3127. I want to thank Senator Anderson first for his service as a firefighter and for his service to the people of Illinois as a first responder and as a state senator. Senator Anderson and I have passed several pieces of legislation, which I'm grateful for that team effort that we have between the Senate and the House. I was proud to join Senator Anderson in guiding Senate Bill 3127 through the legislative process. The House and Senate both passed the measure with unanimous support. I want to take this opportunity to thank all of our public safety dispatchers across the state for their resiliency, resourcefulness, and most especially their composure. It is fitting that we are discussing this legislation on this National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week. These are essential workers that help residents and first responders through their most critical moments, that help save countless lives and help people from every walk of life navigate through the most traumatic of times. There is a shortage of these employees, as there's a shortage of many first responders. My hope is that as we shine a light of thanks and appreciation on their important work, that more people would be called to serve. Where we can help facilitate more people being interested in this kind of life, saving work with legislative actions, we should. And I'm proud to report that we are taking these steps in the state of Illinois by passing this legislation. There's more work to do, but today we pause and thank our telecommunications first responders and thank our colleagues in the General Assembly for their support. And with that, I will pass it back over to Senator Anderson. Thank you.
Thanks, Representative. I'd like to take a moment to let my friend and colleague at QCOM, Scott Rickingham, say a few words. Scott, I've known Scott for a long time personally, and Scott is Assistant Director over at QCOM, which is our dispatching agency for Moline Police and Fire. So Scott, if you would.
Good morning. As Senator Anderson said, my name is Scott Rickingham. I'm Deputy Director at QCOM 911. Just a little background about us. We are a 9-seat communication center. We serve 11 police and fire departments here in Rock Island County, and we're staffed by 27 full-time dispatchers. This bill is important to us. I mean, the dispatcher is literally the first responder on scene of every call. When someone calls, they work quickly to decipher what the emergency is and who needs to respond. Once those units are dispatched, the dispatcher becomes the eyes and ears of those responding officers. Here at QCOM, in a normal month, our dispatchers will handle roughly 10,000 calls for service and about 240,000 radio transmissions and phone calls in and out of our center. Those range anywhere from people asking about parade routes. Why is my power out? People having heart attacks. And now you're jumping right into full-blown CPR over the phone. Structure fires, river rescues, vehicle pursuits, and officer-involved shootings. You just never know what the next call will be. So during your shift as a dispatcher, just for some background, it's not uncommon to go from one end of the spectrum to the next and then back again. I've been a dispatcher myself 27 years before I took over as deputy director, and I've handled these calls myself. You get your frequent flyers who call just to pass the time, just to have somebody listen to them who don't really need anything. To the next call you pick up is someone taking their last breath. And you listen to the cries and screams of the family members in the background. And you keep that with you. I've handled these calls from my own family members. You know, you try and not skip a beat, stay in with your professional protocol. Once it's done, then you try and process what just happened. But this happens every day in every communication center across the country. A lot of times dispatchers have no idea how these calls end because we don't see that part. We don't know if the child you gave CPR instructions for made it, or the officer who got shot, is he going to go home to his family tonight? When our shift is over, we pack our things up, we go home to our families, and we try and keep it all together. As you can tell, these things weigh on dispatchers. Sorry. So we try not to let it spill into our private lives. Being designated as a first responder will open up opportunities for our dispatchers to receive additional mental health benefits, specifically addressing PTSD in the communication center. It'll give us additional resources for funding, grants, training, free up some schedule restrictions that we have now. You know, our first responders, the original first responder, the dispatchers, are asking for help. You know, Senator Anderson knows I've had his back for many years here at Moline Fire Department. And I want to thank both he and Representative Swanson for bringing us this far and having our backs. The onus is now on Governor Pritzker, and it's time for him to sign the bill, do his part, and help those who help our citizens every day.
Thank you, Scott, for that. And thank you for your service to the Quad City region. and into the entire state. With that, we are going to turn it over to reporter questions, starting with Senator Anderson. Senator, you had mentioned as a professional firefighter that you deal directly with dispatch. Do you remember a time specifically that sticks out to you where dispatch played a critical role in your job and was your eyes and ears on a call that, was something you couldn't have done without them?
Yeah. So the dispatchers play such a critical role really on every call, but I'll use a structure fire as an example. A lot of people don't understand the process of just getting to a structure fire and sizing up that scene. And that scene size up begins, us fighting that fire begins on our way to that call. And dispatch, while we're traveling to that call, is able to give us the closest hydrant location to where the fire is. They're able to give us windage, what direction the wind is coming from, which plays a critical role in how we are going to attack that fire, where fire is showing, and so on and so forth. So that's on the fire side, that would be a perfect example of that. On the medical side, I could think of one instance in particular where we were dispatched to a stabbing victim, and the victim was on foot, and we couldn't find them. And it was through the dispatchers being able to tell us where that patient was going and where they were headed the last time they had contact with them. We were able to basically go right to them with their direction. So again, the general public doesn't realize exactly how important dispatchers are to our job, to law enforcement. So yeah, that's just a couple of examples.
Thank you for that, Senator. Again, if you're a reporter on here or listening, you can text any question you have for any member speaking today. That number, 217-617-2566. Again, 217-617-2566. And kind of staying with, the calls, Scott, today in particular, the state could see severe weather across the state, whether it's in the Quad Cities, whether it's Southern Illinois, or, up in the suburbs. How does dispatch play a critical role in responding to severe weather calls?
In our dispatch center, we do everything from notifying public works, the utility companies, setting off tornado sirens for weather. When that weather hits, our dispatch center blows up. I have a minimum of 5 people working at one time in my center. And if it starts pouring down rain and we get big storms, those phones are going crazy. All 5 of those dispatchers are on the phone making calls, taking calls, dispatching police units, fire units, public works. A 911 dispatch center is not just taking 911 phone calls. They take all the administrative phone calls for the 11 agencies that we serve. When public works goes home for the day, all those phone calls now come to us. So we do so much more than just answer 911 calls. And inclement weather is a huge, huge task on your 911 centers. So you get those
Recording
people
stopped.
who are calling to figure out, why is my power out? When is my power coming back on? That takes a huge toll on the dispatcher's resources.
Thank you, Scott, for that answer. We do have a question from WVIK. We actually have 2 questions. I'll start with the first one, and whomever wants to answer that, go ahead and jump in. Why haven't Illinois laws addressed the dispatcher's needs in the past?
I can try to address that. I don't know the exact answer to that. Like I said, I've brought this idea forward several years ago, and it was an idea that, unfortunately, and I still haven't gotten an answer of why several years ago, when I first introduced the idea of why we couldn't go through with it then. talking to all the interested parties, I was never able to really get an answer. I have maybe an inkling of an idea. Maybe it has to do with the benefits that dispatchers will now get with this, such things as EAP benefits that they don't have to negotiate, hours that they will be able to negotiate for. So that is my best guess. Outside of that, I don't know. It's something that should have been done long ago.
Thank you, Senator, for that. And another question from WVIK. And I know you kind of touched on this being a constituent service or an initiative. This question is, was the bill modeled on others that have been effective in other states?
Yeah, so this bill was kind of, we looked at all the other states like Iowa that have done this, and we kind of took everything that we thought would work with current Illinois law and statute and make it work. So yeah, we pulled from a lot of different states that have already recognized emergency dispatchers as first responders.
Thank you, Senator, for that. Again, if you have a question, go ahead and send me a text message or leave me a question in the chat. That number 217-617-2566. And it looks like we have a question for Representative Swanson. Representative Swanson, kind of talk about the bill and how it made its way through the House and the process that it took.
Sure, and thank you for the question. You know, this bill, Senator Anderson first passed it in the Senate, and he reached out to me and said, "Hey, Representative Swanson, would you take this bill over to the House?" Absolutely, I told him. I said, without a doubt, this is great legislation that we can get through quickly. It came over to me, and when Senator Anderson passed it over, it also required an amendment to it. The amendment changed some language within the bill itself, dealing with some of the, and I'll let Senator Anderson cover it more deeply, but it did require an amendment to it. It went through committee, and at committee it received unanimous support. After committee, and as it was being brought forward to the floor, we had many members sign on in support of this piece of legislation. And it's always good to have that legislation that gets unanimous support. It's even better when you get the bipartisan support, which we had both in the House and the Senate, to realize that there are many people who want to recognize the sacrifice of our first responders and of our 911 operators. So it was a good piece of legislation that met no resistance. And it just was good to be able to carry that piece of legislation. And it's mentioned earlier, now it's off to the governor pending his signature. So Senator Anderson, if you'd want to cover that amendment.
Yeah, no, happy to. Yeah, so one of the issues with the condensed session that we had was you don't get as much time to iron out all the very little details in the language. And what happened was the original version that I passed out of the Senate over to the House, we had some people in the insurance and work comp industry come up to us and say, "Hey, we just want to make sure this is done right. Can you address this?" And the 30,000-foot view is we just had to adjust some language to make sure that the dispatchers were getting the maximum benefit that they could under this legislation, but also the legislation wasn't mixing with police and fire and some of their benefits that they're entitled to through current statute. So it's things like that a condensed session kind of causes, everybody's put into a time frame there. So we were able to amend it in the House, like Representative Swanson said, and then came over to the Senate for concurrence this past Friday.